I once made a bet. I'd dress up as a woman and make the city's golden boy, Jack, fall hopelessly in love with me. He was notoriously cold, aloof, and untouchable. But he fell for me head over heels. After I got the money, I left him with a simple message. Surprise, I'm a dude. Then I took the cash and ran. Years later, I came back to the States and we ran into each other. He looked at the little boy next to me, his eyes turning red. You've been gone all these years, and you even have a kid now? I forced a smile to hide my panic. Of course. Unlike you, Mr. Big Shot, I don't plan on staying single forever just because of some guy. I once made a bet with Brandon for $1 million. The goal: dress up as a woman and win over Jack, the heir to the city's biggest fortune. It was no secret that Brandon and Jack couldn't stand each other. When they were kids, they competed over grades. When they grew up, they competed over business. Brandon was a step behind Jack in everything. Right when my family's business hit a rough patch, Brandon found me, dangling a bank card and flashing a smirk. I know you need cash right now. Let's make a bet. You win, the $1 million on this card is yours. You lose, you owe me $1 million. The Nelson family and mine had worked together for years. Even when my parents' company was on the brink, they never kicked us while we were down. Both emotionally and logically, I had to say yes. What's the bet? My eyes were glued to the card in his hand. Dress up as a woman. Seduce Jack. The smile in Brandon's eyes grew wider. Deal. I needed the money. Even though I was a guy. I'd had long hair since I was a kid, and with my soft voice, people often mistook me for a girl. Even Brandon called me sweetheart and honey when he first met me. Pretending to be a woman was no big deal for me. Jack, the city's golden boy, was known for being cold, distant, and completely uninterested in romance. I planned everything meticulously, step by step. And in the end, Jack really did fall head over heels in love with me. Brandon paid up as promised. I left him with a parting shot, by the way, I'm a dude, and disappeared with the money. Running into him again back home was definitely not part of the plan. To capture the market, America's hottest fashion brand, Holy Grail, sent me and our brand ambassador, Ethan, to East Asia to negotiate a partnership. Charlie's summer vacation had just started, so I figured I'd bring him along for a few days. But I never, ever expected this. Jack was the client. The 100-degree sun outside was brutal, but the air conditioning inside sent a shiver down my spine, raising goosebumps all over my arms. Colder than the AC, though, was the look in Jack's eyes. It was bone-chilling. I shrank back, not daring to meet his gaze. But Ethan, my partner in this negotiation, mistook it for some kind of unique Chinese hospitality. Leo, why does Jack keep staring at you? Is that like a polite thing here? I seriously wondered if Ethan needed glasses. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at me like he wanted to kill me. I forced a laugh. Oh, yeah, totally. Ethan then whispered. I looked up Jack before we came. There was this piece of gossip about him. Said he got his heart broken by some guy. Had the story really spread that far? I tried to laugh along with Ethan, but my face wouldn't cooperate. My legs were already starting to shake. Is that right? Well, everyone gets their heart broken at some point. I know, right? That guy must have been an idiot. Jack is so handsome. If it were me, I'd never let him go, Ethan said, his face full of admiration. I almost forgot Ethan was gay. I grumbled to myself. The major points of the partnership had already been hammered out online. We were just here to go over the fashion development plan in more detail. All that was left was signing the physical contract. Leo, go take the contracts to Jack. As much as Ethan had his eyes on Jack, he knew we had to take care of business first. I quickly grabbed the 2 copies and handed them to Jack. He glanced at me coolly, then began flipping through the pages one by one. Jack, you've already seen the digital version of this contract. If there are no issues, we should probably sign, I said, desperate to get it over with and get out of there. I'd been confident about landing this project, but I never imagined the other party would be Jack. I hoped he'd be the bigger person and not hold the whole scamming him thing against me. I swore I'd thank my lucky stars and pray for his good fortune when I got back. No, Jack tossed the contract into my arms and pushed his chair back, standing up. Everyone in the room looked confused. We'd been negotiating this project for over a month. How could he just say no? Jack's gaze lingered on me for half a second before he walked past me and headed for the door. This was the first major overseas partnership I'd handled since joining Holy Grail. It was huge for both my and Ethan's careers. I grabbed the contract and chased after him. My voice was full of hope. Jack, we've been talking for a month. Why won't you sign? Jack's eyes were cold, his expression turning dark. I could feel the pressure in the airdrop around him. Still, I kept my voice respectful and cautious. Maybe you could reconsider? Jack scoffed. He waved his team away, telling them to leave first. Then he turned to face me directly and chuckled. Leo, I don't do business with dishonest people. In the next second, I froze. Years of hustling had smoothed out my rough edges. I put on a smile and tried to placate him. Jack, come on, be the bigger person. Business is business and personal feelings are personal feelings. This partnership is a win-win for both of us. Before I could finish, Jack turned his back and walked away. Fine. I was going to be in the country for a while anyway. I could wait you out. Leo, I take back what I said before. Ethan came out to find me. I didn't get it. What did you say? We had a deal and now he's just backing out. What a moody guy. Ethan looked genuinely regretful. Humph. If I were that man, I would have dumped him too. How was I supposed to explain this? The deal fell through because I was the man who dumped him. I patted Ethan on the shoulder. It's fine. We're here for a while. Maybe Jack will change his mind in a few days. I packed up my things and went down to the lounge to find Charlie. Uncle Leo, did you get the contract signed? Charlie was playing with building blocks. He grinned when he saw me. I ruffled his hair. Not yet. In a couple of days. Charlie nodded. We'll head back to the hotel for now. I'll take you out to dinner later. Charlie was the only family I had left in the world. I had to land this contract to give him a better life. Charlie, while we're here, you have to call me Dad. Okay? Okay, Uncle Leo. Forget it. As soon as we stepped out of the building, we ran right into Jack. Hi, Jack. I waved, my smile pure suck up. I figured he'd ignore me, but to my surprise, he started walking toward us. Jack, about the contract. I had just started speaking when I noticed he was staring at Charlie. I tugged on Charlie's hand. Charlie, say hi to the nice man. Hello, sir. Charlie said it obediently. Jack's face was a stone mask, his expression cold as ice. His dark eyes swept over Charlie's face for a moment. Then they landed on me. I looked up, our gazes locking. Jack, the corners of Jack's eyes slowly turned red. He let out a sharp laugh. You've been gone all these years, and you even have a kid now? My heart skipped a beat. I quickly covered it with a smile. Of course. Unlike you, Mr. Big Shot, I don't plan on staying single forever just because of some guy. What did you say? Jack's glare was so fierce I thought he was going to eat me alive. A chill ran down my spine. I laughed nervously. Jack, it's getting late. Maybe you should head home? Idiot. Jack snorted and turned away. I stared after his retreating figure, a little dazed. The Jack in my memories was always so gentle and considerate. At first, I was only trying to seduce him for that $1 million. Jack worked crazy hours, often pulling all-nighters. But he still carved out huge chunks of time to spend with me. I'd lean in close to his ear and call him Jack, darling, my voice dripping with flirty teasing. It was so sticky sweet it gave me goosebumps just hearing myself. The tips of Jack's ears would turn red, but he'd ignore me. That just made me try harder. My cool fingertips would dance over his waist, the pressure just right. Jack's hands would pause on his keyboard, and he'd whisper, "Don't mess around. Takes one to know one." I didn't listen. I moved my hand up to his Adam's apple. Jack, darling, why are you ignoring me? I was like a little rabbit, doing everything I could to provoke the big, bad wolf. On the surface, Jack looked completely composed, like nothing was happening. In reality, things were definitely happening elsewhere. When he finally closed his laptop and stared at me with burning eyes, I'd back away, blinking innocently. Jack, honey, why'd you stop working? Jack would try to move closer, but I'd just laugh, clutch my stomach, and pull out the ultimate girl excuse. My stomach's bothering me today, that time of the month. Jack would stop dead in his tracks. I'd be secretly celebrating inside. For such a big shot, he was surprisingly innocent. I called Brandon to update him on my progress. Brandon went from excited at the beginning to strangely irritated later on. He just told me to wrap it up. Unso leo. I snapped out of it. Charlie was holding his toy in one arm and tugging on my shirt with his free hand. What's up, Charlie? I looked down at him. Uncle Leo, why did you lie to that man and say you were my dad? My teacher says lying isn't what good kids do. Charlie was lecturing me with a completely serious face. If I don't lie to him, your Uncle Leo is going to be 6 feet under. I knew Jack's hatred for me wasn't just a little thing. What man doesn't have an ego? Especially after being played by another man. But when that man turned away, his eyes were all red. Charlie's little face was deep in thought. I paused for a moment. I never expected the great Jack to have fallen for me that hard. By the time we checked into the hotel, it was already dark. I read Charlie a story for a bit. Once he was asleep, I went to wash up. Just as I finished, my phone rang with an international call. I answered immediately. Hey, Nathan. A lazy voice came through the phone. Leo, how's the contract coming along? Nathan, it's probably going to be a few more days. This Jack guy is unpredictable, kind of a pain to deal with. I told him the truth, and silently cursed Jack out in my head again. Weren't all the details worked out online? Why did he suddenly back out? Nathan sounded a little confused. Yeah, I know. That Jack guy is a total jerk. He already agreed to everything. My voice lacked confidence. I didn't dare tell him it was because of me. Nathan let out a rare laugh on the other end of the line. Then his tone became firm. This project is extremely important to both me and Holy Grail. You have to close this deal. Nathan, what if I can't? I asked cautiously. If you can't close the deal, don't bother coming back. Okay? Nathan. Nathan hung up. I sat on the bed with a long face. Looked like I had to go see Jack again. Nathan was mine and Ethan's boss. He'd appeared out of nowhere at Holy Grail 2 years ago and became the creative director. He was also Chinese. We were the only 2 Chinese people in the entire company. Nathan was all business at work. Outside of work, though, he helped me out a lot. When Charlie was younger, I had to work during the day and was barely home, so I had to hire a nanny. The nanny was a Chinese-American woman Nathan had recommended. Charlie's health wasn't great either. My bank account was almost always empty by the end of the month. Sometimes, when I was completely broke, I'd call Nathan for a loan. Even though I didn't know him well, it was obvious he was some rich kid who'd gotten into fashion for fun. The car he drove to work every day was something I couldn't afford even with 10 years of my salary. Nathan never hesitated to lend me money. I saw him as a mentor and a friend. If he wanted this contract, it had to be crucial. I decided to go see Jack again with Ethan. As soon as we got to the company building, the receptionist stopped us. Sorry, you need an appointment to see Jack. This was the first I'd heard about needing an appointment. Nathan must have scheduled our last meeting. Times had changed. Back then, I never needed an appointment to see Jack. My face was my all-access pass. Thinking back now, it must have been Jack's arrangement. So, if we make an appointment now, how long until we can see Jack? Ethan asked the receptionist in his accented Chinese. One moment, let me check the president's schedule with his assistant. The receptionist made a call, then looked up. Jack is very busy lately. If you want to see him, the earliest opening is in 3 months. What the fuck? Ethan swore. 3 months? My face fell. A 5-year-old could figure out that Jack was messing with us. Nice one, Jack. I pulled Ethan aside. You go back to the hotel. I'll figure something out with the contract. How can he do this? Ethan had never encountered a situation like this before and looked completely dejected. I hailed a cab for him and sent him back to the hotel. Ethan, I booked you an 8-day tour. I know you love Chinese history and culture. You can go have some fun. Don't worry about the contract, I'll handle it. I waved goodbye to Ethan. Ethan didn't know about my history with Jack. With him out of the way, I had other methods of seeing Jack. After Ethan left, I hailed another cab. Driver, 66 Summit Drive. The driver glanced at my clothes and hesitated. You sure, kid? I'm sure. Summit Drive was Billionaire's Row. Jack lived there, and so did Brandon. Half an hour later, the car stopped at number 66, Jack's mansion. I used to come here all the time. Familiar memories flooded my mind. I looked at the keypad lock and hesitated. Back then, as a prank, I changed his passcode to my birthday. He was stuck outside for ages. After all this time, he must have changed it back. I thought for a second. I tried entering his original password. Incorrect password. A cold, robotic voice came from the lock. Wrong. I tried his birthday. Incorrect password. Wrong again. Only 3 tries and I'd already failed twice. One more mistake and the alarm would go off. My palms started to sweat. A strange intuition washed over me. I felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation. I reached out, placed my hand on the keypad, and typed in my own birthday. Password correct. The gate swung open. A flash of white light hit my brain. That old bittersweet feeling crept up again. A strange tightness in my chest. All these years, he never changed the password I set. I stood there for a moment. Then I tried to reassure myself. He was probably just too lazy to change it. He was never one for sentimental nonsense. I stepped inside. Hello, sir. Jack should be back in a little while. A housekeeper came out of the villa. Susan. I'd met her before. Jack was a creature of habit. When he was a kid, his parents were rarely home, and Susan was the one who took care of him. Even though she was older now, he hadn't let her go. I'd once asked him why he didn't hire a younger maid. He said he didn't like adjusting to new people. I knew the truth. He wanted to make sure she was taken care of in her old age. I gave Susan a small smile. It's okay. I'll wait for him. She didn't recognize me. She led me to the living room and brought me a cup of tea. She knew that anyone who could get in with the passcode had to be a close friend of Jack's. I lay down on the sofa and drifted off. In my sleep, I vaguely heard the sound of someone taking off their shoes. I quickly opened my eyes and looked up. I was met with Jack's gaze. Every time I saw his face, I couldn't help but marvel. Jack was truly one of God's favorites. A masterpiece. Leo, do you have any idea that breaking and entering is a crime? Jack stood tall and straight in the entryway. I opened my mouth, feigning innocence. I used the password to get in. How is that breaking and entering? Jack's eyes fixed on my face, a hint of punishment in them. Do you believe me when I say I have 100 ways to get you thrown in jail? I believed him. Of course I did. Never mind 100. He probably had 1,000. I was wrong. I was just so desperate to see you. I lowered my eyes, my quiet voice making me seem especially well-behaved. Jack's gaze swept over me, and he snorted. If I didn't know you so well, I'd almost fall for it again. Jack didn't kick me out. I felt a brief flicker of joy, which was quickly replaced by caution. I came here mainly to ask about the contract. I brought up the contract. Jack took off his jacket, casually hung it on the coat rack, and walked over. Let's not talk about the contract for a second. There's something I've been very curious about. What is it? I looked up. Jack walked over, leaned in close, and loosened his tie, his face cold. He bit out the words, I'm just curious. Does Brandon have more money than me? Or is he more generous? You made a bet with him for a measly $1 million. Aren't I worth more than that? I backed away until my back was pressed against the sofa. My chest felt tight, and I was short of breath. I wanted to. Of course, I knew you were richer. I was afraid if I scammed you out of your heart and your money, you'd actually send me to jail. I said honestly. Jack shot me a fierce glare. It's not too late for me to send you there now. My eyes immediately turned red. Once I've raised Charlie, I'll work for you to pay back my emotional debt. Okay? I was at my wit's end back then. That's the only reason I tricked you. Using the money you got from tricking me to raise your child with someone else? Leo, Jack's tone softened a fraction when he saw my red eyes. You've got some nerve. I was so scared I was about to kneel. Jack took a few steps back and looked down at me. I can sign the contract. My eyes lit up. I was about to leap up and shout, "Thank you, Your Majesty." But then a wave of fear washed over me. "You're not going to want my head, are you?" I quickly touched my neck. Jack raised an eyebrow, probably not expecting me to say that. His lips curled slightly. "Don't worry. That ball on top of your neck isn't worth much." That actually makes sense. "So what do you want?" I was confused. Jack said, "I need a secretary." "Wow. The CEO's personal secretary." I don't think that's a good idea, Jack." I gulped and spoke my mind. "I don't have a secretary right now, and a female one would be inconvenient. You're the right person for the job." Jack's excuse was ridiculous. My mind was racing. For anyone else, a female secretary is a risk. For you, a male secretary is the weirdest thing ever. Everyone knows the great Jack got his heart broken by a guy. Any problem with that? Sensing his gaze, I snapped back to reality. "Oh, of course there's a problem." I stammered. "What problem?" Jack's tone was annoyed. "My boss would never agree." "I'm just a grunt here to sign a contract," I said. Jack's icy gaze swept over me. "Don't worry, I'll talk to your boss. The contract is more important than you are." Suddenly, my eyes caught the watch on Jack's wrist. Maybe my stare was too obvious because he noticed it too. A Swiss men's watch. One I had given him. I'd felt guilty about what I was doing to him, so I bought it for him for Valentine's Day. It wasn't expensive. For him, a watch like that was nothing. But he had put it on his wrist back then and never taken it off. Jack pulled his hand back slightly. The watch disappeared under his shirt cuff. I didn't believe Nathan would throw away our 2-year working relationship for a single contract. I planned to get back to the hotel, wait for it to be daytime on his side of the world, and call him to tell him about Jack's ridiculous demands. Just as I left Jack's mansion and was about to hail a cab, I ran into someone I knew. "Brandon." "Leo?" Brandon looked surprised to see me from his car. There was another emotion in his eyes I couldn't quite read. "You're back?" Brandon told me to get in. "Yeah." I nodded. Brandon started the car and asked where I was going, offering to give me a ride. I didn't refuse and gave him the name of my hotel. Brandon's hands rested on the steering wheel. He watched the road ahead and asked casually, "When did you get back?" I replied, "A couple of days ago." "Why didn't you contact me?" Brandon said, then seemed to realize how abrupt that sounded and added, "How have you been abroad?" "Okay, I guess. Good enough to support myself and Charlie." "Are you planning on going back?" I shook my head. "Don't know yet." Brandon fell silent. The car was quiet for a moment. My mind drifted back to when we were kids. My parents' business was thriving. Brandon's parents were partners with mine, helping each other out along the way. The first time his parents brought little Brandon over to my house to play, I was in the yard, chasing butterflies. I was growing my hair out to donate to kids with leukemia, so it was long. Little Brandon thought I was a girl. He started playing with me in the yard. Our parents were inside talking business. "Hey, little girl, there's a butterfly over here." I had a real attitude back then. I remember thinking, what a shame. A perfectly good kid who's already blind at such a young age. I ignored little Brandon. He didn't seem to mind. A moment later, "Little girl, here's another one." "Little girl, why are you ignoring me?" I rolled my eyes at him. "Duh, because I have no patience for idiots." It wasn't until I unzipped my pants and started peeing on the grass. Little Brandon froze on the spot. I finally understood that the phrase "an earth-shattering moment" wasn't a joke. The next second, little Brandon burst into tears. Both sets of parents rushed outside. No matter how much his mom asked him what happened, little Brandon wouldn't say a word. My mom asked me, "Did you bully your new friend?" I shook my head. How could I? He kept calling me little girl. So I just ignored him. That sent both sets of parents into fits of laughter. Little Brandon just cried even louder. Lost in thought, I let out a laugh in the car. I couldn't help but turn and look at Brandon. He steered with one hand, his voice casual. "What's so funny?" I paused, then blinked, just thinking about the first time we met. Brandon put both hands back on the wheel, the smile on his face slowly fading. We happened to be at a red light. The car stopped, and Brandon turned to look out the window, speaking softly. If you weren't a man. The next second, I heard his slightly hoarse voice again. Maybe I wouldn't be like this. Wouldn't be like this? Like what? My gaze rested on Brandon's profile. In the shifting light, he looked a little lonely. Wouldn't be what? I asked him. The light turned green. Brandon didn't answer, just focused on driving. About 15 minutes later, we arrived at the hotel. I got out and thanked him. Just as I turned to leave, Brandon called my name. Leo. Yeah. I turned back. If you run into any trouble, you can call me. I smiled. What trouble could I possibly get into? I turned and gave him a wave. The Nelson family, his parents, they'd already helped me so much. Any more, and I'd never be able to repay the debt. Back at the hotel, I called Nathan. He had just woken up on the other side of the world. Hello. Nathan, this contract is going to be tough. Tough? I don't think it's tough at all, Nathan said. Not tough. Then you come sign it. I pouted and said, Jack said he needs a secretary. The words were barely out of my mouth when Nathan asked, He's asking you to be his secretary? How did you know? I asked, puzzled. Just a guess. Nathan's tone was a little evasive, but I didn't think much of it. What should I do? I asked him. What should you do? Be his secretary, of course. Just as Jack had predicted. To Nathan, the contract was what mattered. He'd probably clap his hands in applause if I sold myself to Jack. What are you hesitating for? Nathan asked me. You're a grown man. It's not like he can eat you. Jack looked like he wanted to eat me alive. Of course, I couldn't say that to Nathan. Fine, I'll think of something else. I hung up, took a deep breath, and walked out onto the balcony, staring at the city's nightscape, lost in thought. After 2 days of thinking, I decided to try talking to Jack again. But before I could find him, Brandon called and asked me to go out for a drink. I'm not much of a drinker, but I couldn't say no. At the bar, the bartender swayed gracefully, mixing a colorful cocktail. The flashing neon lights, the deafening music, the frenzied dancing. I felt myself getting lost in it. Brandon brought over 2 cocktails. Drink? I shook my head. I don't drink. This one's low proof. It's like juice. I took it suspiciously and had a small sip. A faint fruity taste spread through my mouth. The alcohol content was very low. I asked Brandon why he'd called me out. He said he wanted to catch up. I laughed and asked what there was to catch up on. He didn't answer, just took a sip of his drink. As we talked, the topic inevitably turned to the bet. I don't know if it was the lights, but the corners of Brandon's eyes seemed a little red. Even if you hadn't made that bet with me, I would have given you the money. I just smiled, looking unconcerned. If you'd offered it to me directly, I probably wouldn't have taken it. I know. Brandon's voice was tinged with bitterness. But I regret it. I was a little dazed, not understanding what he meant. Regret what? You don't regret giving me the money, do you? I joked, looking at him. Because I've already spent it all. Brandon shook his head and gave a bitter smile. No, I regret making the bet with you. Regret what? You got what you wanted, didn't you? Making Jack a laughingstock, getting tricked by a guy in a dress. I was confused. The bet was just an excuse to give you the money. I never thought you'd take it so seriously and actually go through with it. Brandon's expression slowly hardened. You're drunk? Brandon. My eyes darted away. Leo, I know better than you whether I'm drunk or not. Brandon's voice was tinged with resignation. I didn't say anything. Why did you suddenly come back? Brandon switched topics. I thought for a moment and told him everything. So now Jack is refusing to sign the contract? I nodded, then shook my head. Not necessarily. I don't know what he's thinking. Brandon's gaze shifted to the distance, as if he were deep in thought or watching the writhing bodies on the dance floor. I followed his gaze and joked. See anyone you like? Brandon pulled his gaze back, set down his glass, and glanced at me. You're overthinking it. I don't like women. I gave him a look of mock disgust. It's the middle of summer. Don't tell such cold jokes. Brandon chuckled softly. In the darkness, Brandon's eyes were burning, his expression strangely serious in the chaotic environment. Leo, I looked up to meet his eyes. Brandon stared at me and said, "Word for word, the contract Jack won't sign? I can sign it with you." The dim lights and the buzz of alcohol always make people bolder. "What are you talking about?" An idea was forming in the back of my mind, but I didn't dare acknowledge it. "I'm a little tired today. I think I'm going to head back." I rubbed my shoulder and tried to walk past him, but Brandon blocked my way. "Is there something else?" I took a step back, putting distance between us. "Leo, you should know what I mean. I don't want to." Brandon showed no intention of moving. Whichever way I tried to go, he blocked me. He wouldn't let me leave. "Brandon." I was getting angry. Suddenly, a voice came from behind me. "Who said I'm not signing the contract?" I turned around to see Jack's tall frame standing behind me. I had no idea how much he'd heard. "Brandon, I've decided to sign this contract now." Before the words had even settled, Jack grabbed my wrist and pulled me away, disappearing from Brandon's sight. The atmosphere in the car was a little strange. "Jack, what are you doing here?" Jack looked at me, his voice slow and deliberate. "This is my bar. Can't I be here if I want to?" "Fine. I shouldn't have asked." "What you just said about signing the contract. I didn't mishear that, did I?" The thought of the contract made my eyes light up. "Why are you still in contact with Brandon?" Jack asked me instead. "We just happened to meet up." Jack's tone was annoyed, full of warning. Seducing me was enough. "If you want this contract signed, stay away from Brandon." I felt a surge of irritation. He wouldn't sign the contract, and now he was telling me who I could and couldn't see. My rebellious streak flared up. "I'll do what I want." Before I could finish, Jack's hand shot out and cupped the back of my neck. He leaned in and kissed me. I froze. A few seconds later, Jack pulled back slightly, then wrapped his arm around my waist, pressing me against the car window. He leaned in again. His warm breath ghosted over my neck. I closed my eyes reflexively, but the expected kiss didn't come. Instead, I heard Jack's voice, laced with laughter, in my ear. "Leo, don't even think about seducing anyone else." I felt weak, my back leaning against the window. The air in the car felt thin, suffocating me, and I gasped for breath. Jack, on the other hand, was as composed and dapper as ever. He started the car. Wolf in sheep's clothing. I gritted my teeth and cursed him. Men, not a single good one among them. Except me. Jack kept his hands on the steering wheel, a smirk playing on his lips. "Thanks for the compliment." "It's an insult." I glared at him. Jack reached out and ruffled my hair. "Be good." I slapped his hand away and smoothed my hair down, complaining, "Don't touch my hair. You're messing it up." Jack pulled his hand back and said calmly, "You can mess up mine if you want." I rolled my eyes and looked out the window. "Who wants to touch your hair?" "I don't have that problem." Jack used to love touching my hair. I'd always tell him that wanting to touch people's hair was a sickness and he needed help. He'd just shrug and say he only liked touching my hair. "Why'd you cut your hair short?" Jack asked me. I didn't like it. Can't I just not want it anymore? I would never tell him it was because every time I saw myself with long hair in the mirror, all I could think about was him touching it. "Okay, as long as you like it." Jack dropped me off at my hotel. His voice was a little deep. "Stay away from Brandon from now on." I frowned. Jack continued, "Brandon doesn't have good intentions toward you." I turned my head and shot back. "And you do?" Jack thought for a moment, then looked at me and said slowly, "My intentions aren't exactly pure, either." Remembering that Jack had promised to sign the contract, my attitude did a complete 180. I put on my most flattering face. "Jack, about that contract." Jack watched my sycophantic transformation in silence for a second, then laughed in exasperation. "In another life, you would have made a great court eunuch." I fought back the urge to retort. "Then you would have definitely been the emperor." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Then you'd better serve me well." On the surface, I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Of course. Inside, I was thinking, "You bastard. The second you sign this, I'm gone." I looked up and met his gaze. His eyes seemed to see right through me. I swallowed hard. "Well, I'll head back to my room then. Drive safe." Jack stopped my hand as I reached for the door handle, his deep eyes fixed on me. Not going to invite me up for a drink? Jack followed me all the way to my hotel room door. I took out my key card and opened the door. As soon as I stepped inside, a small figure launched himself at me. "Leo, you finally decided to come back." Charlie hugged my leg, his voice full of grievance. I bent down, picked him up, and soothed him. "I'm sorry. Once this contract is signed, I'll take you out to have some real fun. You promise? Okay? You can't lie to me." Charlie wrapped his arms around my neck, whining playfully. I smiled. "When have I ever lied to you?" "True." Charlie had the air of a little adult, which was adorable. "Hello, sir." Charlie's little voice chirped. I turned and saw Jack still standing in the entryway. I'd almost forgotten about him. "Come on in and sit down. I'll get you a glass of water." "Okay." Jack walked around the room, then sat on the sofa and gave me a faint glance. I put Charlie down. "Why don't you keep this gentleman company while I get him some water?" Charlie nodded obediently. When I came back with the water, Jack was on the floor with Charlie, building with blocks. I handed the glass to Jack. My eyes sent him a clear message. "Drink up and get out." Jack pointedly ignored me and continued playing with Charlie until late into the night. Before he left, Charlie was still tugging on his shirt, asking him to come play again soon. Jack pinched his cheek affectionately and promised. "Okay." Then his gaze shifted to me. "Come see me tomorrow to sign the contract." I was ecstatic on the inside, but on the outside, I just nodded and watched him leave. Charlie's hand waved in front of my face. Un soleo, un soleo. HM? I looked down at Charlie. I like that man. He's the first friend I've made in China. Charlie's voice was full of excitement. A pang of sadness hit me. He could have grown up happy here if it hadn't been for that whole mess. I asked Charlie, "Do you like it here?" "I love it." Charlie nodded. I felt a wave of uncertainty. Maybe it was time for Charlie to start preschool here. I went to find Jack with the contract. I had no trouble getting up to his office. "Jack is in a meeting. He'll be here in a moment." His executive assistant settled me in and then left with a stack of files. Wow. Leave it to Jack to have a male model for an executive assistant. Jack's office hadn't changed much. It was still decorated in a somber, serious color palette. I leaned back in his chair and my eyes fell on a photo frame on his desk. I froze. It was a photo of him and me. It was a little blurry, not like it was taken with a phone. I didn't remember ever taking a picture with him. I tried to recall the scene in the photo. My hand was under his suit jacket, inside his shirt, lightly tracing his waist. Jack's most sensitive spot. The man in the photo had his brow furrowed, looking down at me, his breathing heavy. He practically ground out the words, "I don't mind doing it right here." "Doing what?" I had asked, my voice soft and feigning innocence. My hand inside his shirt kept moving again and again. "If you don't want to do anything, then stop touching my waist." Jack's voice was full of turmoil. I had chuckled softly, pulling my hand back but pressing closer to him. Jack fell silent, just holding me without moving. The photo captured that exact moment. I glanced around the office, and my eyes landed on the security camera on the wall. My suspicion was confirmed. When Jack and I were together, it was almost always just the two of us. Unless this photo was a screenshot Jack had taken from the security footage. The thought made my chest tighten, like there was a stone lodged in it. But I had to admit it. Jack liked me far more than I had ever imagined. A soft cough came from the doorway. I quickly put the frame down and stood up. In my haste, I knocked the frame over on the desk. "Jack, you're here." Jack noticed the slight tremor in my voice and his gaze flickered to the photo frame on the desk. "Have you been waiting long?" I said quietly, "Not too long." I handed the contract to Jack. He picked up a pen from his desk and signed it without even looking. "Aren't you going to read it?" I asked. He really trusted me. "No need." Jack righted the photo frame, putting it back in its original spot. I paused. "Sorry about that." Before I could finish, Jack interrupted me. "Charlie isn't your son, is he?" It wasn't a question. It was a statement. "How did you know?" The words tumbled out of my mouth. Jack didn't speak. He just placed a DNA test report on the desk and looked at me. Want to see? No way. I knew whether Charlie was my son or not. I knew from the beginning that Charlie wasn't your kid. I only took your hair samples to force you to admit it. Jack said. Charlie is so cute and so smart. He's nothing like you. Jack, that's enough. Jack's expression softened slightly. But I am a little curious. Why are you raising a child? Charlie is my sister's only child. 5 years ago, my sister married a social climber. At first, the man was wonderful to my sister. But over time, his true colors showed. He not only took over my parents' company but also stole my shares. My parents had built that company from the ground up. That ungrateful bastard had no right to it. It started with a small financial hole, one that could have been easily fixed. But he was arrogant and underestimated the problem. Soon enough, besides the Nelson family who had always supported us, all the other shareholders pulled out. The company faced bankruptcy overnight. That bastard watched the company collapse, and to escape his creditors, he jumped off a building. My sister, who had just given birth, was so weak that she collapsed and fainted. At that moment, the entire burden fell on me. On one hand, I had to deal with the creditors. On the other, I had to care for a newborn. That's when Brandon found me. The money from the bet was just enough to patch the financial hole. So I agreed to it. So what are your plans now? Jack's voice was hoarse after hearing my story. I gave a bitter smile. Take it one step at a time, I guess. But Charlie seems to really like it here. And what about me? Jack's voice cracked. His eyes locked on mine. Can't I be a reason for you to stay? My thoughts were a mess. Jack, I lied to you from the very beginning. For both of us, this relationship is tainted. I can't properly accept the feelings you have for me anymore. I stared into his eyes, and tears started streaming down my face without warning. No matter how I looked at it, I felt like I was no good, that I didn't deserve Jack. But have you ever asked me? I have feelings too. This has been hard for me too. Jack rubbed his temples. If it wasn't for this contract, were you planning on never seeing me again? I thought about it. I didn't say anything. Were you? Jack pressed. But I'm a man. I was dressing as a woman back then. I whispered. Jack's eyes were red, staring at me intently, his voice hard. You really are an idiot. Did you think everyone is as dumb as Brandon? Thinking long hair automatically makes someone a girl? Huh? I looked up. You knew I was a man 3 years ago? Jack sighed. Yes. I knew you were a man from the start. You wanted to act, so I played along. I was waiting for you to open up and tell me the truth, to let me help you with your troubles. But what did you do? You threw out a surprise, I'm a dude, and ran off to another country. Did you ever give me a chance? My eyes started to well up. Jack gave a bitter laugh. You blocked me on everything. I didn't even know what country you were in. If it weren't for the security footage in my office, I would have thought meeting you was just a dream that disappeared when I woke up. Jack, after you disappeared, I wanted to send people to find you, but I didn't even have a clear picture of your face. The funniest part is the photo on my desk is a screenshot from my security camera. I was wrong. I had never thought that anyone besides my parents would care about me so much. I always assumed he was just playing around with me too. After all, how could someone so high and mighty fall for someone like me? Even though I knew I'd started to fall for him 3 years ago, I would never have admitted it. You weren't wrong. I should have tied you up 3 years ago, tamed you until you couldn't leave me. Jack's expression turned fierce. I tamed me. Yeah, I should probably run. My relationship with Jack became complicated. I took the contract back to the hotel and ran into Ethan, who had just gotten back from his tour. Ethan's face lit up when he saw the contract in my hand. Leo, you actually did it. How did you get Jack to sign? I stammered, unable to come up with a good excuse, and just spouted some nonsense. I didn't even believe myself. Jack probably wanted to test our attitude from the start. He just waited a few days to see how committed we were to the partnership. Ethan actually bought it. His attitude shifted instantly. I knew it. A man that handsome wouldn't make things difficult for us. That's not what you were saying before. I called Nathan to report my progress. Nathan, the contract is signed. Nathan's voice showed no surprise. I was silent for a couple of seconds. So when should Ethan and I head back? You're still planning on coming back? Nathan's voice went up an octave. Something felt weird. Nathan, if I don't come back, where would I go? Go to? Nathan stopped himself. He cleared his throat strategically. Well, about the partnership. I'm planning on setting up a branch in China. You can be the interim overseas brand manager. There was no news about setting up a branch before. Was it really that casual? Just have Ethan come back for now. Tell him not to lose the contract. Before I could agree, he hung up. I stared at my phone, completely baffled. The first time I met Nathan was on his first day at the company. He immediately transferred me to be his assistant. I had wondered then, out of everyone in the company, why me? He had just smiled mysteriously and said he felt a connection with another Asian face. Actually, I never told him, but he looked familiar to me too. But I was sure we had never met. As we worked together, Nathan helped me out in countless ways, both big and small. Even the apartment I rented was his, and he gave me a discount. Rumors started spreading around the office that Nathan was gay. I was wary of him for a while, but he never showed any interest in me. He did, however, have a string of girlfriends. Landing this contract felt like I was finally repaying a small part of his kindness. Ethan was incredibly reluctant to leave. Of course, not because of me. Why do I have to go back alone? I haven't eaten enough of the amazing food here. I'm going to submit a transfer request as soon as I get back. I want to be stationed in China. But what I'll miss most is Jack. He has to stay single and wait for me. I quickly pushed Ethan toward the security checkpoint. Leo, you have to promise to tell Jack how much I love him. I'll be back for him soon. My face was a storm cloud. Fine, now get going, you drama queen. Ethan wiped his tears and asked, what's a drama queen? Ha ha ha, it means good person, a really good person. I laughed to cover it up. Ethan hugged me, snot and tears everywhere. I'm gonna miss you too, Leo. Jack seemed to have adopted Charlie as his own kid. He was busy running around getting Charlie enrolled in preschool. On weekends, he'd take him to amusement parks. And then, Leo, you and Charlie should move in with me. Jack gave a very serious list of reasons why it would be better for Charlie to live with him. Like it would be easier to take him to school. And boy, was it convenient. To make it easier for Charlie to get to school, he built a preschool right on Summit Drive. And it would be easier to manage Charlie's meals. He hired a private child nutritionist for him at the mansion. Even when I took Charlie to visit his mother's grave, Jack insisted on coming along to lay a bouquet of flowers. He said she was his sister too. The next time I saw Brandon was when I went to pay him back. Brandon, there's $500,000 on this card. I'll pay you back the rest slowly. It was the money left over after fixing the company's finances, plus what I'd managed to save every month for the past few years, and what I got from selling some of my parents' things from the old house. All cobbled together, it came to $500,000. Brandon looked stunned, then angry. Leo, I don't need the money. I pressed my lips together. I know you don't need the money, but that's a separate issue from me paying you back. You've been planning how to pay me back ever since you got the money from the bet, haven't you? Brandon asked in a low voice. I didn't deny it. First, I really don't like being in debt to people. Second, I didn't want my relationship with Jack to be tangled up with that $1 million. I don't want it. Brandon threw the card back at me. I don't want this card. I want you. Brandon's face was pale. His pupils constricted as he stared at me.
Brandon, I'm sorry.
I can pay you back the money, but anything else is off the table. I looked up to meet his eyes. Brandon clenched his fist and punched the wall, a storm brewing in his eyes. I just don't get it. Why would I, the CEO of the Nelson Corporation, fall for a man like you? I looked at Brandon, unsure of what to say. If my parents hadn't taken me to your house, I wouldn't have thought you were a girl, and I wouldn't have fallen for you, right? Brandon didn't give me a chance to speak. I knew you didn't like me. That's why I provoked you 3 years ago and made that bet. And what happened? You'd rather take the bet than ask me for help. Brandon, you can't force feelings. It's the one thing in this world you can't force. I said, Life is never perfect. No matter how hard you try, some things just can't be fixed. I often wonder, what if my sister had never married that man? Would my life be less exhausting? Would Charlie be happier? Brandon, you need to cut your losses. Are you in love with Jack? I closed my eyes, not answering him. But I loved you first. Brandon's voice was hoarse, his eyes unfocused. Suddenly, Jack's voice came from behind us. Brandon, love isn't first come, first served. It's not about gender or age. The moment you decided to make that bet with Leo, you'd already lost. I turned to look at Jack and said softly, I thought we agreed you'd wait for me outside. Jack wrapped his arm around me, his voice low and serious. I was worried about you being alone, so I came in. Then Jack looked at Brandon and said calmly, It's true you loved Leo first, but I can guarantee you, my love is deeper. Deeper than you can possibly imagine. You weren't willing to swallow your pride as a Nelson heir to pursue Leo, but I was. I don't care if everyone in our circle laughs at me for being fooled by a man in a dress. I don't deny any of it. My love for Leo is open and honest, without any impurities. But you're different. Your family, your career, even the benefits for both our families, all of it was part of your calculation. Even if you confess your feelings today, it's only because you know Leo and I are together. You're trying to fool yourself into thinking you tried. But did you really take that step? Ask your own heart. Stop lying to yourself. Weighing the pros and cons, planning every move, that's a losing strategy in love. Brandon cut Jack off. And you? If Leo hadn't happened to come back, would you have had a chance? Jack was silent for a few seconds, then said coolly, We're both businessmen. You should know that opportunities aren't waited for, they're created. What makes you think his return was a coincidence and not my design? I frowned. The more they talked, the less I understood. I whispered to Jack, What does that mean? Jack just ruffled my hair and soothed me. It's nothing. It was Brandon who started laughing. It looked unnatural. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. No wonder I've been losing to you since we were kids. I admit defeat. Brandon shook his head with a bitter smile. But if Leo ever decides he doesn't want to be with you, I definitely won't miss my chance again. Jack's final words were, Don't worry. You won't get that chance. Then he took my hand and led me away. Some time later, Ethan really did get transferred to the China branch. Leo, you lied to me. You said, drama queen meant good person. I called Nathan that, and he asked me if I still wanted my job. Ethan looked at me, heartbroken. I couldn't help but laugh. So Jack isn't married, right? Ethan asked me hopefully. Married? Definitely not. I shook my head. Okay, good. I whispered to myself, but I think he has a boyfriend. It wasn't until Ethan saw me lounging in Jack's arms that he froze, completely petrified. I thought we were bros, and you were trying to steal my man? Then he tearfully called Nathan and asked to be transferred back. A long time later, one day, I was looking for something in Jack's study. A photograph fell out from a bookshelf. It was a picture of a teenage Jack, holding a basketball and looking at the camera. Next to him were a few of his friends. My gaze stopped on the face of the person next to Jack. Nathan. Nathan knew Jack? And they'd known each other since they were teenagers? That night, when Jack got home from work, he sensed a strange atmosphere in the house. Even Charlie wasn't in the living room. Jack cautiously took off his jacket, washed his hands, and gently hugged me. Honey, what's wrong? I ignored him. What did I do wrong? Honey, I'm sorry, whatever it is, I'll fix it. Just don't give me the silent treatment. Jack started to panic, massaging my back and bringing me a basin of water to wash my feet. Finally, he threw out his last resort. From now on, you can be on top. How about that? My face darkened. Ever since we got together, Jack's mind had been permanently in the gutter. I handed him the photograph. From my job under Nathan to my return to the country, you planned all of it, didn't you? You and Nathan knew each other all along? Jack let out a long breath and smiled. You scared me. I thought you'd changed your mind about me. Jack told me everything I didn't know. He and Nathan had known each other since they were kids. When I was pretending to be a woman and dating Jack, he had introduced me to his friends. Nathan was one of them. There were just too many people at the time, and it had been so long. Plus, I'm a little face blind, so I never remembered any of them. Nathan and I had both studied design in college. Nathan became the head of Holy Grail. Just as I was starting to make a name for myself as a designer, Nathan transferred me to his department. That first meeting was actually our second. No wonder he had looked so familiar. Nathan called Jack and told him I had a child. Jack assumed I was in love with a woman and forced himself not to come looking for me. When Nathan heard my lease was up, Jack bought an apartment near my office overnight and had Nathan rent it to me at a low price. Even the nanny Nathan recommended was someone Jack had found. Jack had specifically found a Chinese-American nanny, so it would be easier for Charlie to adjust when he came back to the country. Nathan called Jack a lovesick fool, but Jack was beyond saving. After waiting for 2 years, and with no woman appearing in my life, Nathan asked Jack if it was time to make a move. Jack didn't hesitate. He immediately set up a subsidiary and started partnership talks with Holy Grail. He agreed to many of Nathan's conditions, but he had only one request: send Leo to China to negotiate. After hearing everything, my eyes were already brimming with tears. This wasn't some fairy tale reunion. It was two people who couldn't forget, and one person's meticulous planning. Jack never changed the password on his gate, afraid that one day I might come back and not be able to get in. The day I went to pay Brandon back. Brandon understood Jack's words, but I hadn't. I'm so stupid. I took a deep breath and leaned my head on Jack's shoulder. Leo, if I could, I would never have wanted you to know any of this, Jack said, holding me, his voice serious. Then I would never have known how much you love me, how much you did for me. I pulled away and met his gaze. Jack's deep eyes reflected my image, and he made a solemn promise. A lifetime is a long time. I'll spend my entire life proving to you how much I love you, how much I want you. So it turned out, in this world, there really was someone who, without my knowing, had loved me for a very, very long time.